I never thought I'd have to call the police on my own daughter, but as I stood in the doorway of my Muskoka Cottage watching her play hostess to a group of strangers, I knew that one quiet phone call would shatter the carefully constructed lie she'd been living. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this unfolded, because what happened next changed everything between us forever. My name is Richard Thornton, and I'm 63 years old. I built my life in Toronto as an engineer, spending 35 years designing infrastructure projects across Ontario. The work was demanding, the hours brutal, but it gave me something precious, the ability to provide for my family and eventually purchase a small piece of paradise. The cottage sits on Lake Rousseau, about 2 hours north of the city. My late wife, Catherine, and I bought the property 22 years ago when our daughter Jennifer was just 8 years old. Back then, it was barely more than a fishing shack with a leaky roof and a dock that swayed dangerously in the wind. Catherine saw past all that. She had a vision. We spent 5 summers transforming that place. I rebuilt the entire structure with my own hands, new foundation, extended the living space, added a wraparound deck where Catherine could watch the sunrise over the water. She chose every detail: the cedar planks for the exterior, the stone fireplace that became the heart of the main room, the large windows that framed the lake like a living painting. We planted gardens, cleared trails through the surrounding woods, built a boathouse. It wasn't just construction, it was love made tangible. Every nail I hammered, every board I cut, I did thinking about the life we were building together. The memories we'd make there. Catherine passed away 4 years ago. Breast cancer. She fought for 18 months, but in the end, the disease was relentless. The cottage became more than just a vacation property after that. It became the last place where I could still feel her presence. I could sit on the deck in the morning with my coffee and remember her laugh. I could walk the trails and recall our conversations. It was sacred ground. Jennifer knew all of this. She'd been there through her mother's illness, through the funeral, through my grief, or so I thought. She understood the significance of that place. My daughter had always been complicated, intelligent, charming when she wanted to be, but there was something lacking in her capacity for forward thinking. After university, she drifted from job to job, always with grand plans that never materialized. Marketing consultant, social media manager, life coach. Each career shift came with enthusiasm and promises, followed by excuses about difficult bosses or unappreciative clients. I'd been supporting her financially since she graduated 8 years ago, not continuously. I told myself, just bridging gaps between opportunities. But looking back now, the gaps had become the norm, and the opportunities mere interludes. I transferred money for rent, for her car, for investments in various business ventures that never quite got off the ground. Last year alone, I'd given her $48,000. I justified it. She was my only child. Catherine would have wanted me to help. She was still finding her way. All the rationalizations parents tell themselves when they can't face the truth that their generosity has become enabling. 6 months ago, Jennifer started dating someone named Marcus Chen. She brought him to Sunday dinner at my house in Toronto, and I could immediately tell she was different around him, animated, almost desperate to impress. Marcus was 34, a real estate developer from a wealthy family. His parents owned several properties across the GTA and had built a successful commercial real estate portfolio. Marcus seemed pleasant enough, if a bit entitled, the kind of person who'd never had to struggle for anything. But Jennifer was happier than I'd seen her in years, so I kept my concerns to myself. Then last month, Jennifer called me with unusual excitement in her voice. "Dad, I need to ask you something. Marcus's parents want to meet me properly, like a formal dinner thing with his whole family at their house in Rosedale. His mother is very traditional about these things." "That sounds serious," I said, genuinely pleased. Maybe this relationship would be good for her. Maybe Marcus would be the stability she needed. "It is serious, Dad. Really serious. But here's the thing." Her voice shifted slightly, took on that particular tone that I'd learned over the years meant she was about to ask for something. "Marcus's family is very successful, you know. They have expectations about what kind of family he marries into. Jennifer, if they judge you based on wealth..." "No, Dad, it's not like that. It's just..." Marcus might have mentioned that my family owns property, plural, and I may have let him believe we have the Muskoka place and some other investments. My stomach tightened. "You told him what?" I didn't technically lie. We do have the cottage, and you have your retirement investments. I just didn't correct his assumptions about the scale of things. Dad, please, this is important to me. Can't we just present things in the best light? For one dinner? I should have said no right there. I should have insisted on honesty from the start. But she sounded so hopeful, and I thought, what harm could one dinner do? They didn't need to know the exact details of my financial situation. Fine, I said. But Jennifer, no more exaggerations after this. If this relationship is real, it needs to be built on truth. Of course, Dad. Thank you. I love you. The dinner happened 3 weeks later. I wore my best suit and drove to the Chen family's house in Rosedale, a massive Victorian mansion that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire career. Marcus's parents, William and Patricia Chen, were polite but appraising. They asked careful questions about my engineering work, about the cottage, about my property portfolio. I kept my answers vague and truthful, without volunteering information. Yes, I had a place in Muskoka. Yes, I'd done well enough in my career to retire comfortably. I didn't mention that comfortably meant I was careful with money, that the cottage was my one significant asset besides my house and pension. Jennifer, however, had no such restraint. She painted an elaborate picture of family wealth, talking about our properties and investment portfolios and the family cottage estate. I felt my face flush as she spoke. But what could I do? Contradict her in front of these people? Humiliate her? I pulled her aside when we stepped out to the garden for after-dinner drinks. Jennifer, you need to stop embellishing. This has gone too far. Dad, relax. It's fine. They like you. They like us. Don't ruin this for me. I'm not ruining anything. I'm asking you to be honest. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Honest, like you were honest about how much you've actually given me over the years? Honest, like pretending you built that cottage all by yourself instead of admitting Mom did most of the design work? Everyone exaggerates a little, Dad. It's called making a good impression. The comment stung, particularly the jab about Catherine. But before I could respond, Marcus appeared with drinks, and the moment passed. 2 weeks after that dinner, Jennifer called again. Dad, amazing news. Marcus proposed. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Congratulations. I meant it. Despite my concerns, I wanted her to be happy. And Dad, there's something else. Marcus's parents want to see the cottage. They're planning a family trip to Muskoka in October, and they want to stop by. They're talking about maybe hosting our engagement party there next summer. Isn't that exciting? My blood ran cold. Jennifer, I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? It's the perfect setting. And it would mean so much to Marcus's family. Because you've been misrepresenting what that place is. It's a cottage, Jennifer. A nice cottage. But it's not some grand estate. It's 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a living area. It's where your mother and I spent our summers. Not a venue for elaborate parties. There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice was harder. So you're saying you won't let me use the family cottage for my engagement party? I'm saying we need to be realistic about what the place is. And I'm saying I'm not comfortable with more deception. It's not deception, Dad. It's just presenting things nicely. Look, I'll talk to Marcus about their expectations. But please, can you at least let them visit? His mother specifically asked about it. I can't back out now. Against my better judgment, I agreed. But I insisted on being there when they visited. Jennifer reluctantly accepted. The visit was scheduled for the 2nd weekend in October. But that week, I came down with a severe flu that developed into bronchitis. My doctor ordered me to rest, warned me against the 2-hour drive and the cottage's colder temperatures. I called Jennifer to postpone. Dad, I can't postpone. Everything's arranged. Marcus's parents have cleared their schedule. We have restaurant reservations in Huntsville. I'll show them around myself. You've given me keys. Jennifer, I'm not comfortable with that. Why? Don't you trust me? It's my family cottage too, Dad. I grew up there. I think I can manage giving people a tour. She had a point. I was being overprotective. It was her inheritance someday anyway. And I was too exhausted from coughing and fever to argue. Fine. But please, just show them the cottage. Don't make any promises about parties or events without talking to me first. Of course, Dad. Feel better. I love you. 2 weeks passed. The bronchitis cleared up, and I started feeling human again. Jennifer sent a few text messages saying the cottage visit had gone well, that the Chens were impressed, that everything was wonderful. She was busy with wedding planning, she said, and we'd catch up soon. I decided to drive up to the cottage myself. It had been nearly a month since I'd been there, and I missed the quiet. The fall colors would be at their peak. I could spend a few days just sitting on the deck, reading, maybe doing some fishing. I needed time in the place where Catherine still felt close. I didn't tell Jennifer I was coming. Why would I? It was my cottage. The drive up was beautiful. The maples were brilliant red and gold, the sky that particular shade of October blue you only get in cottage country. I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in weeks as I turned onto the private road leading to my property. But something was wrong. There were cars parked along the road near my driveway. Expensive cars. A BMW, a Mercedes SUV, a Tesla. I felt a prickle of concern. Had there been a break-in? Were these people trespassing? Then I saw my cottage. The deck was set up with outdoor furniture I'd never seen before. Elegant lounge chairs, a glass-topped table, strings of lights I hadn't hung. People were on the deck. I could hear laughter, music playing. I parked my truck and walked toward the cottage, my heart pounding. As I got closer, I could see Jennifer through the large windows, holding a wine glass, gesturing animatedly to a group of well-dressed people I didn't recognize. The front door wasn't locked. I walked in. The interior had been transformed. New furniture, new decorations, candles burning, a catered spread of food laid out on my dining table. At least a dozen people filled my small living space, all dressed like they were at some upscale cocktail party. Jennifer stood near the fireplace I'd built stone by stone with Catherine, directing me talking to an older couple who had to be Marcus's parents. She was in the middle of a sentence. So grateful my parents gave me this cottage when they decided to downsize. It's been in the family for generations, and I just couldn't bear to see it go to strangers. This is where I plan to host all our family gatherings going forward. Our children's summers. She turned and saw me. The color drained from her face. Dad? The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me, standing in my own doorway in my worn flannel jacket and jeans, clearly not part of whatever elaborate fiction was unfolding here. I looked at my daughter, at this woman I'd raised, who was claiming ownership of the cottage her mother and I had built with our own hands, and I felt something break inside me. Jennifer, I said quietly, what's going on here? She recovered quickly. I'll give her that. She walked toward me with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dad, I didn't know you were coming up. Everyone, this is my father, Richard. Dad, you remember Marcus and his parents? William Chen extended his hand. Richard, good to see you again. Jennifer's been giving us the grand tour of her cottage. It's a beautiful property. Her cottage. I didn't shake his hand. I looked at Jennifer. Can we talk privately? Dad, we have guests. Can this wait? No. My voice was firmer than I'd heard it in years. It can't. Marcus stepped forward, sensing the tension. Mr. Thornton, is everything all right? Did we come at a bad time? I turned to him, to this young man my daughter was planning to marry, who she'd been lying to for months. I need to ask you something, Marcus. Whose cottage does Jennifer say this is? His eyes flickered with confusion. Well, hers. She told us her parents gifted it to her when they were getting older, that it's been in your family since. It hasn't been in my family for generations. I bought this property 22 years ago with my late wife. We built most of what you see here with our own hands, and I certainly haven't gifted it to anyone. This is my cottage. I own it. Jennifer has keys because she's my daughter, not because it's hers. The room was completely silent now. Patricia Chen's face had gone rigid. Marcus looked between me and Jennifer with growing realization. Jennifer's expression shifted through several emotions: shock, anger, desperation. She let out a forced laugh. Dad, what are you talking about? You're confused. Maybe the bronchitis. I'm not confused, Jennifer. Would you like me to show everyone the property deed? It's in the filing cabinet upstairs. My name on it. Dated June 2003. Dad, please. How long have you been telling people this cottage is yours? How many other lies have you told Marcus and his family? I think we should leave, Patricia Chen said coldly, setting down her wine glass. William, Marcus, gather your things. Mrs. Chen, please, let me explain, Jennifer started, but Patricia held up a hand. I don't think explanations will help at this point. Marcus, we're leaving. Now. Marcus looked at Jennifer with something like pity. You told me your family was wealthy, that you had property, investments. You said, God, Jen, you said so many things. Were any of them true? Marcus, please, I can explain. My dad, he's territorial about the cottage because of Mom. But it's practically mine already. She's lying, I said. And I felt Catherine's presence so strongly in that moment. Felt her anger at seeing our daughter become this person. I've been supporting Jennifer financially for 8 years. She doesn't have investments. She doesn't have property. She has a father who loves her and keeps bailing her out of situations she creates with her dishonesty. Jennifer's face contorted with rage. How dare you? How dare you humiliate me like this in front of... How dare I? Jennifer, you brought strangers into my cottage without permission and claimed it as your own. You've been lying to your fiancé and his family for months. You turned your mother's memorial into a stage for your deception. This isn't a memorial, Dad. It's a cottage. Mom's gone. She's been gone for 4 years, and you need to move on instead of turning this place into some shrine that no one else can use. The cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Several of the guests had already started moving toward the door, the party clearly over. Marcus stood frozen, looking at Jennifer like he'd never seen her before. I think, William Chen said with careful formality, that we need to reassess some things. Marcus, this is clearly a family matter. Richard, I apologize for the intrusion. We were operating under misinformation. I nodded, unable to speak. I watched as the guests filed out, heard car doors slamming, engines starting. Within minutes, only Jennifer, Marcus, and I remained. Marcus turned to Jennifer one last time. Did you ever actually love me? Or was I just, what? A meal ticket? A way to pretend you were someone you're not? Marcus, please. He shook his head and walked out. Through the window, I watched him get into his Tesla and drive away. Jennifer whirled on me, and the mask was completely gone now. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Do you know how much that family is worth? How set I would have been? Set? The word tasted bitter. Is that what this was about? Marrying money? Oh, don't act so superior. You think I haven't noticed how you judge me? How you compare me to Mom? Perfect Catherine, who was so creative and wise and wonderful. Well, guess what, Dad? I'm not her. I'm never going to be her. And I'm tired of trying to live up to a dead woman's memory. This isn't about your mother. This is about you lying and manipulating people. This is about you claiming ownership of something I built. Something that represents. Represents what? Your grief? Your refusal to move forward? I'm your daughter, your only child, and you care more about this building than you do about my happiness. Your happiness? Jennifer, I've given you $48,000 in the last year alone. I've supported you through every job change, every failed venture, every crisis, but apparently that wasn't enough. You needed to steal my property too? She grabbed her purse from the couch. I'm done with this. I'm done with you sitting in judgment while you throw money at me and then complain about it. You want your precious cottage so badly? Fine. Keep it. Sit here alone with your memories and your dead wife and see how fulfilling that is. She stormed toward the door, then turned back. And for the record, the only reason I kept coming around, the only reason I even pretended to care about your feelings, was because I knew I'd inherit this place someday. But you know what? It's not worth it. You're not worth it. Stay in your shrine. I'm going to find someone who actually wants me to have a life. The door slammed behind her. I heard her car start, the sound of gravel as she sped away. I stood alone in my cottage, surrounded by the debris of her party, empty wine glasses, half-eaten canapes, the smell of expensive perfume and cigarette smoke from people who'd stepped onto my deck. The strings of lights she'd hung threw shadows across Catherine's carefully chosen furniture, now mixed with the rental pieces Jennifer had brought in. I walked to the fireplace and sat on the hearth, the stones still warm from the fire she'd built for her guests. On the mantel, she'd moved the photo of Catherine and me, the one taken here on our 20th anniversary, both of us grinning in front of the cottage we'd built together. She'd pushed it to the side to make room for a decorative candle arrangement. I picked up the photo and held it, looking at Catherine's face. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry I let it get this far. I'm sorry I didn't see what she was becoming. That night, I cleaned up. I threw out the rental furniture, took down the lights, removed every trace of Jennifer's party. I found my property deed in the filing cabinet and sat with it for a long time, reading and rereading my name, Catherine's name, the legal description of our land. The next morning, I drove to my lawyer's office in Bracebridge. Thomas Fitzgerald had handled my will and estate planning for 15 years. He listened as I explained what had happened. "Richard," he said carefully, "I understand you're angry, but disinheriting your daughter is a big step. Take some time. Think it through. I've taken 30 years, Tom, and what I've learned is that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. I've enabled this behavior every time I've bailed her out, every time I've looked the other way at a lie or an exaggeration. I've taught her that there are no real consequences, that someone will always save her. What do you want to do? I want the cottage protected. I want it clear in my will that Jennifer inherits nothing unless she completes a financial management course, holds a stable job for at least 2 years, and can demonstrate responsibility. And I want her access to the cottage revoked. New locks, new security codes, everything." "That's harsh, Richard." "Maybe. But I built this place with my wife. It represents every good thing in my life. I won't have it become another thing Jennifer uses and discards when it no longer serves her purposes." Tom drafted the necessary documents. I signed them, feeling both relief and grief. On my way back to the cottage, Jennifer called. I didn't answer. She called again and again. Finally, she left a voicemail. Her voice was different, smaller, uncertain. "Dad, I'm sorry. I know I said terrible things. I was just so embarrassed and angry, and I lashed out. Can we talk, please? I've been thinking about what you said, and you're right. I've made mistakes. I want to fix this. Call me back." I listened to the message 3 times. Part of me, the part that remembered teaching her to swim in the lake, helping her with homework at the cottage's kitchen table, holding her while she cried after her mother's funeral, wanted to call back immediately, wanted to forgive and move forward. But another part of me, the part that Catherine would have agreed with, knew that this was the moment that mattered. This was where I chose whether to keep enabling or to finally let my daughter grow up. I saved the message but didn't return the call. Over the next 2 weeks, Jennifer reached out 17 times. Calls, texts, emails. The tone shifted from apologetic to angry to desperate. She tried different approaches. She needed help with rent. She needed to talk about her feelings. She'd started therapy and wanted to share what she was learning. Marcus was willing to give her another chance, if she could just explain things properly, and could I please call his parents? I didn't respond to any of it. On the 3rd week, Marcus called me directly. "Mr. Thornton, I know this is awkward, but I need to ask you something. Jennifer says she's been trying to reach you, and you're ignoring her. She says you've changed the locks on the cottage and cut her off completely. Is that true?" "Yes." There was a pause. "Can I ask why?" "Because for 8 years, I've been teaching my daughter that her actions don't have consequences, that no matter what she does, someone will rescue her. I'm done teaching that lesson." "But she's your daughter." She's really struggling, Mr. Thornton. She lost her job last week. She's about to lose her apartment, and I know she lied. I know she's made mistakes, but doesn't she deserve some compassion?" "Marcus, let me ask you something. If you'd married her, and 5 years down the line she'd run up massive credit card debt, gambling on some business scheme, or lied to your business partners about something crucial, or put your family's reputation at risk with her deceptions, would you want someone to have taught her accountability, or would you want to be the one learning that she never faces consequences?" Silence. "I love my daughter," I continued. "That's why I'm doing this. The kindest thing I can do for her now is let her hit bottom and discover she's capable of climbing back up on her own. She says she hates you. Maybe she does, but maybe someday she'll understand." Marcus hung up. I sat on my deck, watching the November wind ripple across the lake, and let myself cry. Because it hurt, God. It hurt to hold firm when everything in me wanted to reach out and fix things. But I thought about all the times over the years when I'd stepped in too soon, prevented her from experiencing failure, shielded her from consequences. I thought about how each rescue had made the next one more necessary. I'd been so focused on protecting her from pain that I'd never let her develop the muscles needed to handle difficulty. Catherine and I used to talk about parenting philosophy late at night on this deck, She was always the more pragmatic one. "We can't live their lives for them," she'd said once, when Jennifer was struggling in high school and I wanted to talk to her teachers about giving her extra credit. "If we do, they never learn to live their own lives. They just learn to wait for rescue." I'd overruled her that time, had gone to the teachers. Jennifer got the extra credit, and I'd started a pattern that had continued for 2 decades. I kept working with Tom on my estate planning. We structured everything to require proof of responsibility before Jennifer could inherit. It wasn't about punishment. It was about finally giving her the incentive to change that I'd never provided before. Christmas approached. Jennifer sent a card, a real card, handwritten. "Dad, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need you to know I'm trying. I'm working 2 part-time jobs to cover rent. I'm seeing a therapist every week. I'm facing things about myself that are hard to face. I know I've said I'm sorry before and not meant it, but I mean it now. What I said about Mom, about the cottage, about you, none of it was true. I was just so angry at being exposed, and I took it out on you. I miss you. I miss talking to you. Even if you can't forgive me yet, can you at least let me know you're okay? Jennifer." I held the card for a long time. It sounded genuine. But I'd heard genuine-sounding apologies before, followed by requests for money within days. I waited. January came. More cards, more messages. Jennifer sent me a photo of a pay stub from a grocery store where she'd been working. 3 months steady, she wrote. Haven't called in sick once. Haven't quit. Small steps. In February, she sent a certificate showing she'd completed a financial literacy course through the community college. Learned more in 8 weeks than in my entire life, her note said. Did you know about compound interest? About emergency funds? Why didn't they teach us this stuff in school? Or maybe they did, and I wasn't paying attention. I felt the ice around my heart beginning to crack. But I still didn't reach out. In March, she sent a letter, not a card. 3 pages, handwritten. Dad, my therapist says, I need to write this, whether you read it or not. She says it's about taking responsibility, not about being forgiven. So here it is. I'm an entitled, manipulative person who spent 30 years expecting other people to solve my problems. I lied to Marcus and his family because I wanted to be someone I wasn't, and I was too lazy to actually become that person through work and honesty. I said horrible things about Mom because I was jealous of a dead woman. How messed up is that? I was jealous that you loved her more than you seemed to love me, even though the truth is that you've shown me more patient love than I ever deserved. I invaded your cottage, your memorial to Mom, and turned it into a prop for my lies. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I don't know if I can forgive myself. But I'm trying to be better. Not so you'll give me money or the cottage or anything else. Just so I can look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgusted. I got a full-time job at the grocery store assistant manager position. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, and it's mine. I'm 3 months ahead on rent for the first time in my adult life. I'm paying off debts. I'm learning to live within my means. And Dad, I'm learning that there's something satisfying about earning things yourself that I never felt when you were just giving them to me. I'm sorry it took losing you to figure this out. I love you, Jennifer. I read the letter 5 times. Then I got in my truck and drove to Toronto. Jennifer's apartment was in a modest building in East York, nothing like the trendy neighborhoods she used to insist on living in. I rang the buzzer. Hello? Her voice was cautious. It's Dad. Silence. Then, come up. 3rd floor, Unit 312. She opened the door, and I barely recognized her. She'd cut her hair short, wore minimal makeup, was dressed in comfortable clothes instead of the designer labels she used to favor. She looked younger somehow, despite the obvious stress in her face. Dad, she whispered, and her eyes filled with tears. Can we talk? We sat at her small kitchen table, IKEA furniture. She'd clearly assembled herself. The apartment was tiny but clean, organized. On her fridge, I saw a budget spreadsheet, a work schedule, a list of goals. I got your letters, I said. All of them. But you didn't respond. No, I needed to see if you'd keep going without the expectation of rescue. If you'd do the work for yourself, not for me. She nodded slowly. I understand, and I have. I mean, I'm doing it. Working, budgeting, going to therapy. It's hard, Dad. It's really hard. Some days I wake up and think about how much easier things were when I could just call you for money. But then I think about how empty I felt, always waiting for someone else to solve my problems. Tell me about the job. She smiled, and it was genuine. It's retail management, not exactly what I imagined when I was getting my degree. But you know what? I'm good at it. I'm good at organizing things, motivating the team, problem solving. Last month, I increased our department sales by 15%. My boss noticed. She's talking about promoting me to store manager at one of our other locations. I'm proud of you. Her lip trembled. You are? Yes. Not because of the promotion or the savings or any specific achievement. I'm proud because you're finally becoming the person you're capable of being, the person your mother always knew you could be. We talked for 3 hours, really talked, maybe for the first time in years. She told me about therapy, about confronting the patterns she'd developed, about realizing how much of her identity had been built on deception and shortcuts. She told me she'd reached out to Marcus to apologize, not to try to get back together, but just to acknowledge the harm she'd caused. He's dating someone else, she said, and you know what? Good for him. He deserves someone honest. Before I left, I hugged her. Jennifer, I want you to know something. I didn't cut you off because I stopped loving you. I cut you off because I loved you enough to let you fall so you could learn to stand on your own. I know that now. It took me months to understand it, but I know. The cottage, I said, carefully. It's still mine. It's going to stay mine for the foreseeable future. But when I'm gone, and when you've proven to yourself, not to me, to yourself that you're responsible and independent, it'll be yours. Your mother and I built it together. Someday, I hope you'll appreciate it for what it really is, not just as an asset. She nodded. I'd like to visit sometime. Not to stay there, not to use it, just to remember, Mom. Remember being a kid there. If you'd let me, we'll see. One step at a time. I drove back to the cottage that night, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't. Jennifer had years of growth ahead of her. But because I'd finally done the hardest thing a parent can do, I'd let go. Sitting on the deck in the cool spring evening, I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo of Catherine that I keep as my background. I could almost hear her voice. "Took you long enough," she'd say, with that smile that always told me she was proud, even when she was teasing. "I know," I said aloud, the words carrying across the quiet water. "But I got there eventually. The lesson I learned came 30 years too late. But maybe that's when it was meant to arrive. For decades, I'd been so afraid of Jennifer failing that I'd never let her try. I'd been so busy being her safety net that I'd never let her develop her own balance. And in doing so, I'd been teaching her the worst possible lesson, that her actions didn't matter, that someone would always clean up her messes, that she didn't have to grow because growth was optional when you had a rescue available. The most loving thing I ever did for my daughter was the hardest thing I ever did. I stopped being her rescuer and let her become her own person. I stopped protecting her from consequences and started trusting that she could handle them. I stopped solving her problems and started believing she could solve them herself. Because here's what I finally understood. Parenting isn't about shielding your children from every difficulty. It's about giving them the tools to handle difficulty themselves. It's not about preventing failure. It's about teaching them that failure is survivable and often necessary. It's not about making their lives easy. It's about helping them become people capable of handling hard things. I'd been so terrified of Jennifer struggling that I'd robbed her of the opportunity to discover her own strength. Every time I'd stepped in to save her, I'd sent the message that I didn't believe she could save herself. And she'd internalized that message, had built an entire identity around being saved rather than being capable. Cutting her off wasn't punishment. It was finally, belatedly, giving her the respect of believing she could stand on her own. It was saying, I trust that you're strong enough to handle this, even if it's hard. I trust that you can learn and grow and become someone who doesn't need constant rescue. Was it painful? Absolutely. Did I doubt myself 100 times during those months of silence? Every single day. But I also knew that if I gave in, if I rescued her one more time, I'd be confirming all the worst lessons I'd been teaching her for 30 years. Sometimes love means holding firm when everything in you wants to reach out and fix things. Sometimes love means letting people hit bottom because that's where they finally find their foundation. Sometimes love means believing in someone's potential even when they've shown you nothing but failure, and then stepping back to let them prove you right. Jennifer is still working on herself. She'll probably be working on herself for years. But she's actually working, not just talking about working or planning to work someday. She's facing her issues head on, instead of running from them or expecting someone else to handle them. She's building a life based on what she can do, not on what she can convince others to give her. And me? I'm learning too. Learning that being a good parent doesn't mean always saying yes. It doesn't mean always being available to solve problems. It doesn't mean sacrificing your own boundaries to make your children comfortable. Being a good parent, I've discovered, sometimes means letting your children be uncomfortable. It means holding boundaries even when they're angry about them. It means letting them face the natural consequences of their choices, even when those consequences are painful to watch. It means believing in their capacity to grow, even when they haven't shown you that capacity yet. The cottage sits quiet now, the way Catherine and I always meant it to be. The deck where we used to watch sunrises together holds only my coffee cup in the mornings. The trails we cleared together are peaceful and still. The fireplace we built stone by stone warms only my evening reading, and that's okay. Because this place was never about impressing people, or hosting elaborate parties, or serving as someone's prop for their deception. It was about two people who loved each other, building something solid and true. It was about creating a space where we could be ourselves, where we could sit in comfortable silence, where we could remember what mattered. Jennifer will understand that someday. Maybe when she's older, maybe when she has her own children, maybe when she's finally done enough work on herself to appreciate what it means to build something real. And when she does, when she truly understands, she'll be welcome here again, not before. Because the last gift I can give my daughter is the same one Catherine would have given her, the expectation that she can be better than she's been, the belief that she's capable of growth, change, and genuine responsibility, the knowledge that real love sometimes says no, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants you to become the best version of yourself. I sit on this deck now, and I think about all the years I spent trying to make Jennifer's life easier, and I realize I was actually making it harder. I was teaching her to be helpless. I was creating a person who couldn't function without rescue. And the kindest thing I could do was stop. So if you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the parent who keeps rescuing, who keeps enabling, who keeps stepping in to solve problems, your adult children should be solving themselves. I want you to know something. It's not too late to change course. It's not too late to start holding boundaries. It's not too late to begin believing that your children are capable of more than you've been allowing them to show. It will be hard. They'll be angry. They'll accuse you of not loving them anymore, of being cruel, of abandoning them when they need you most. They'll try every manipulation they've learned over the years to get you to return to the old pattern, and you'll doubt yourself constantly. But hold firm, because what you're actually doing is giving them the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to discover their own strength. You're saying, I believe in you enough to let you figure this out. You're teaching them that they're capable, resilient, and strong enough to handle their own lives. And someday, if you're lucky, they'll thank you for it. They'll look back and understand that the hardest thing you ever did was also the most loving thing you ever did. That's the lesson Catherine tried to teach me years ago, the one I was too afraid to learn. That's the lesson I'm finally teaching Jennifer now, even though it's decades late. That's the lesson I hope any parent reading this will take to heart before they spend 30 years enabling behavior that ultimately hurts the people they love most. Real love isn't about making life easy. It's about helping people become capable of handling life's difficulties themselves. It's about teaching resilience, not reliance. It's about building people who stand on their own 2 feet, not people who constantly need someone else to hold them up. I wish I'd learned that sooner, but I learned it eventually. And that, I suppose, is what matters in the end.